Welcome back. You're tuned into India Tonight. And now we put our focus on the 2025 Barclays Private Clients Who Run India Most Valuable Family Business list that is out. And unsurprisingly, it is the Ambani family which has packed the first spot as India's most valuable family business. But which are the other families in the spotlight and what are the key highlights of this report? My colleague Anjali Palot is here with all of those details. Anjali, take us through the details of this rich list and which are the other families aside of the Ambani family which are part of the list.
The 2025 Barclays Private Client and Who Run India list of most valuable family businesses in India is out, and it has your usual suspects as well as some very interesting information about their contribution to India's economy. Let's start with looking at the top 3 businesses on this list. Topping the list is Ambani family with 28.2 lakh crore rupees in their total net worth, which in fact is 12% of India's gross domestic product. The second on the list is Kumar Mangalam Birla family with 6.5 lakh crore, and the third is Jindal family with 5.7 lakh crore rupees of net worth. Let's also take a look at the first generation family businesses on this list, the top 20. If you look at the first one, it is Adani family with 14 lakh crore rupees of net worth, and the second is Poonawalla family, which owns the Serum Institute of India at 2.3 lakh crore. Now we also look at their contribution. They employ over 2 million people in the country, and they also paid 1.8 lakh crore rupees in taxes. This is the top 300 family businesses in the country, and they generated as much as 7,100 crore rupees every single day last year. While most of these companies are listed, there is Haldiram's family, which is at 85,800 crore rupees, the most valuable unlisted company for the second consecutive year now. Let's also look at some more interesting demographic level data. 22 of these companies are women-led and 62 of them are professionally led by CEOs. If you also look at the listed companies, then 70% of these companies are listed, 40% of these are B2C companies, 49% B2B companies. So a large chunk is B2B and B2C, while the ones that deal in both B2B and B2C are just 11% of these companies. Let's also look at generation-wise data. So the second generation families in this list are 227. So the largest, a big majority of these companies are second generation businesses. Third generation, 50 of them. Fourth generation, 18. Fifth generation, just 3. And sixth generation business, just 2. So that's the wrap on the 2025 Barclays Private Client and Who Run India list of the most valuable family businesses in the country.
All right, thank you very much, Anjali, for putting that data into perspective and, of course, with all of those insights that this report presents and, of course, to discuss that report further and, of course, to delve into some of those questions that are arising out of that report. I'm now joined by Anas Rahman Junaid. He's the founder and chief researcher at Who Run India, and Feroz Aziz, who joins CEO at Anand Rathi Wealth Limited. Thank you very much, Anas and Feroz, for joining us here on ET Now. Let me come to you, Anas, first. Now, the key highlight of the report being the fact that India's top 300 family businesses generated over 7,000 crores every day last year. What's been the key driver for wealth creation?
Thank you for the opportunity. I think firstly, the list, we've increased the size of the list by 100. And if you look at the overall the wealth creation or the sector from which most of these family businesses are hailed from, it's mainly the manufacturing. I think the data that the Barclays Private Clients Who Run India Family Business 300 list proves that these family businesses are the manufacturing backbone of India's economy. And the top sector that contributed to the entrance in the list is industrial products, followed by automobile and auto component, and then thirdly chemicals. So of course some sort of manufacturing boom has increased in the overall valuation. And also if you look at the valuation in itself, if you look at the top 200 threshold compared to last year, the threshold to enter the top 200 has increased by 70% compared to what it was last year. Now, if you look at the top 50, that threshold has increased by 31% to rupees 54,000 crores. Just to enter the top 50, a family needs to have created value of about rupees 54,000 crores. And to enter the top 10 has become even tougher. The valuation has has increased by almost 20,000 crores to rupees 2.2 lakh crores. I think the overall value creation of the underlying businesses are the primary driver behind the overall value increase of these families.
Right, Anas. In fact, the incorporation of the Haldiram family being part of the list for the second consecutive year, that's a very, very interesting insight. But Feroz, let me come to you. Of course, Anas is hinting to the fact that manufacturing played a key role in industrial policies and, of course, as becoming part of this list. But I have to ask you this question. How much of this wealth creation was driven by new age economy and startups, or was most of this driven by just family-led businesses?
See, I think, good evening, Smita. I think the whole driver of this wealth creation is largely the stock holding, which is owned by families. See, India is a concept. Indian capital market has this unique promoter concept. Okay, so if there's a lot of promoter holding, there is going to be earnings growth in the businesses. If they're listed companies, their values go up in terms of capital flows into the secondary market. So if you look at most of these listed players, their net worths of the families are driven by their ownerships in their own family businesses. That's point one. Point two is if you look at globally, like S&P 500, those are top 500 companies in the US, right? There, 90% of the companies have more than 90% free float. And there's hardly any concept of a promoter. So where is this wealth creation from? It's not a direct economic benefit. It is the value ownership of these businesses owned by promoters, which is a unique India concept. In India, there are only 30 out of NSE 500, 30 companies, which is 6% of the companies have more than 90% free float. So every year when you see this list, if the capital markets do very well, if equity markets do very well, if mutual fund gets money, there's a lot of money which flows into equity markets. And in spite of FIs selling, these people have gotten richer. Apart from, like you said, Haldiram's is a business which is unlisted. They've not got so much of a boom out of the capital market inflows from the domestic institutions.
Right, Feroz. In fact, this list essentially states that 74% of the companies featured in the report are essentially listed firms. So definitely the stock markets did have a role to play in our wealth creation. And of course, that's also been seen in the kind of rally that we've seen in the markets in the past few years. But Anas, let me come to you. Based on this year's findings, and of course, you were talking about manufacturing and some other sectors that contributed to sort of, companies and of course, family businesses becoming part of the list. What are you predicting for the future of wealth creation, particularly as far as India is concerned? Which sectors will drive that?
No, I think one very important requirement for India as an economy to grow is to availability of capital. And family businesses at this point in time, based on the private equity interest, be it to Haldiram's or be it to Merrill, which has an interest from the sovereign funds, it seems to be like a very ripe ground or a very strong interest point for foreign institutional investors and private equity investors. So it's a great capital catcher, if I can put it that way. Now, for a domestic, let's say a startup economy, I really think one of the most important requirements is to have patient capital, and which is what a value creator or a wealth creating a family can provide. So this combination of value creation of the family business, which results in overall wealth creation, the ecosystem can have a positive impact to not just to the business that they own, but to the overall ecosystem as well, which includes the startup technology, be through investment through family offices, and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't just count on one particular sector. Of course, manufacturing is driven by the family business, but mainly it'll go, the impact and the effect of this will go beyond their own business, but also the startup economy. And let's add one more point. One interesting fact that we brought out is that 100 plus entrants in the Barclays Private Clients Hurun India Family Business List. They also featured in the Hurun India Philanthropy List. And they've cumulatively donated about rupees 5,000 crores last year. So there is a responsible side of entrepreneurship that is being met there as well. So there is entrepreneurship, wealth creation. There is also responsible entrepreneurship, which is very much required for growth of India as an economy.
Right, Anas, we'll have to see and of course go into further detail as to how much of this really boosted entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial ecosystem, given the fact that capital is still difficult to come by. Let me come to you on that point, Feroz. Now, do you see wealth creation and of course the inclusion of entrepreneurs in this list in a few years from now, given the fact that this is being pointed out again and again that capital and patient capital, most importantly, is still difficult to come by. In fact, if you see the startups ecosystem, there is more capital which is coming in for Series A and not as much for Series B, C or mature funding companies.
When it comes to wealth and capital, they're two separate ones. If you look at, like you said, capital in India, risk capital is a scarce thing. See, most often than not, India has 950 lakh crores of household savings, out of which there's only 6.7% in equity. Out of 940 lakh crores, 6% is very abysmal small amount of money, and people are screaming that there's so much blind equity participation, which is still, we are just scratching the surface. So risk capital has been very low in India. Like you rightly pointed out, startup capital is even lower because that's considered higher riskier than a matured listed business. Now, if there's risk capital lower, then obviously entrepreneurship breeding grounds are not so lucrative. But what is also happening is there is also capital being given for something like a transshipment port, which is being made in Kerala, right? That's going to be a game changer. Now, the new generation business, like you stated, the Adani Group has participated, and it's a PPP, public and private partnership, which is creating that huge opportunity for India, that you can be a transshipment hub like Singapore and Dubai have been, and they have capitalized on our freight for years, if not decades. So coming back to your point, if there is lower risk capital, the multiplier which you get in the economy is significantly lower. For example, when 11.11 lakh crores is being spent on capital expenditure or infrastructure, what is happening is there's a multiplier effect of almost 3.7 times in the GDP. So now government has started spending a lot of money for long-term capital, especially infrastructure, but private spending is low. But when promoters' net worth goes up, it really changes the game, because their credibility to borrow, their leverage capability goes up. Because interest rates were very high in India, even if there was a promoter who could create leverage because of his net worth, would not using that, because byaj dare kam hi nahi ho rahi thi, right? You were at 6.5% repo. Now you see 1% reduction in repo. So that's a great combination. Lower interest rates, higher risk capital, willingness for private investment.
And which is why there is a push from the startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem, from the PE ecosystem as well, for more patient capital from pension funds, and perhaps if more pension funds can also participate in wealth creation and investments as well. Let me come to you, Anas, on another point. Are there any notable differences in wealth accumulation strategies between younger billionaires and the older generation when you look at that report?
I think Feroz would be the best person to answer that question. But what I've seen based on my close interactions with some of the family businesses, next generation entrepreneurs, is that there is a tremendous focus in terms of giving back or adding value to these sectors that they're strong at. For example, I know if an entrepreneur, the next gen entrepreneur comes from the renewable sector, so next gen is very keen on creating a family office that is focused on supporting or providing capital to that ecosystem. So there is a tremendous focus, quite understandably so, using the experience that the family has gained over the multi-year experience, working on their core sector. So that is something that I've clearly seen. The first generation is, I've seen quite a few times, focused on building their own business because they find it much more lucrative in terms of returns, spending time on their business than anything else. But next gen, I've seen it's more focused. They also continue on the first generation principles, but also are looking at new opportunities to support new startups. Just to give you an idea, if you look at the number of the number of individuals in the list who've done the postgraduate degrees, it's mostly, if you take the number, the HPS scores number one in that table, right? And the top two are the schools outside of India. So they've studied outside, they've come back to India with global perspectives in terms of how to add value back to the economy. So there is focus at first gen, next gen, all levels, but family business, there is a tremendous focus across generations.
Tremendous focus that, Anas, you say, is in family businesses across generations and across different kinds of businesses. But definitely one question that all of us need to ponder upon is how can risk capital be boosted with the kind of support that government can give to boost overall this ecosystem so that more and more entrepreneurs can become part of this development journey of India. As it is, India is looking at becoming the topmost startup capital of the world. However, it remains to be seen how soon can entrepreneurs be part of this list. As of now, it's dominated by family businesses. Thank you very much, gentlemen, on that note, for joining us.